I got to meet Alex for the first time the other night. That was exciting.
That was great. Were you surprised by anything?
No, nothing surprised.
He's a large specimen.
I don't know. He was about the size I expected him to be.
Yeah.
Today, we talk about parallel worlds as our shared reality gives way to something different, where the fracturing predicted by filter bubbles goes from something temporary to something permanent. AI is always an accelerant, and we discuss this across three vectors. First, how we learn and understand information is rapidly changing, and it is not going back. Many years ago, just as Twitter emerged, a very prescient friend of mine joked that soon we would visit the Natural History Museum to find an exhibit featuring the last person on Earth able to sit and read a book. That day is fast approaching. Technology has been applied to reduce friction, and wading through books and long articles and words in general is inefficient. AI is at its core a cognitive technology. It is often painted as saving time, making us more efficient and therefore more productive, and this is true, of course. Yet studies are emerging to counter that. In one, coders estimated they saved quite a bit of time using AI coding tools, when in reality, they actually took longer. What they did save was effort. It seems to me that in a world where quote-unquote intelligence is available on demand, the true moat will be those who can resist the readily available shortcuts and instead do the hard work of deep learning, when the tools and marketplace incentives are to glean enough information to be able to perform mastery without actually doing the hard work of achieving mastery. Next, we dig into the creeping feeling of moral revulsion at AI-generated content. I am a writer by nature. I am one of the old-fashioned people who believe that the act of writing is the act of thinking. So I am perhaps biased in my reaction to the LinkedIn posts obviously written by AI that I see on a daily basis whenever I visit the world's greatest social network, which is LinkedIn. The tell is not just the M-dash, it's not this, it's that framing and the overuse of dumb words like high signal. But let's assume that that will get fixed. And words, as I always say, they always go first in these things. AI music tools like Suno and Google's video generator VO3 are improving rapidly. And they show how AI is moving up the content value chain, if you will. And this is inevitably leading to conflicting feelings. I tend to think of this as how processed foods overtook a large swath of the food system, because processed food is cheap, it's fast, and it's also engineered to be addictive. And using these tools, particularly ChatGPT, on a daily basis, I'm constantly reminded of these tools are being engineered to be addictive. There's a reason that ChatGPT is continuing to ask you questions about going deeper and deeper and deeper. And this is fine, with the kinds of things that a lot of people are using it for. But many people are using this for therapy. Many people are using this as a life companion. How young people are using these technologies is vastly different to how those of us in middle age are using them. And I think just as the processed food system, led to the creation of farm-to-table restaurants and organic food co-ops, so too will, information gleaned the old-fashioned way become luxury signifiers. I think that this will happen, particularly as synthetic content inevitably overtakes the information ecosystem. And finally, we dig into the parallel worlds being created in the information space, notably in the rise of the new right alternative media ecosystem. I find this scruffy sector fascinating. There's an incredible array of characters. There's constant drama. And that is not a bug, that is a feature, a core feature of this. And I think it's going to be replicated across many areas. And I think of them as successors to filter bubbles, which, back over almost 15 years ago, assumed a shared reality from which filter bubbles deviated. But we've gone well beyond that, obviously, since then. And something that I've observed in my recent deep dive into this alternative media ecosystem is that the growth hacks of just a few years ago are now quaint. I mean, the engagement farming that is going on now is far more sophisticated The algorithms are all being injected with AI. And so we're going to look back at those old Curiosity Gap headlines as, something a bit old-fashioned. Now on to our discussion. Welcome to People vs. Algorithms Summer Edition. I'm Brian Morrissey. Welcome, Troy Young, Alex Schleifer.
What surprised me over dinner was that, I had wanted to get a monkey for a while, just to have as a pet and to basic, like help me with things and stuff, fetch things. And Alex told me he had a monkey.
Yeah, that was a twist. I didn't know you grew up with so many animals.
We grew up with every animal. Like Noah's Ark.
The monkey was a disaster.
Yeah, monkeys are disasters. And I'm sorry, I don't know how many PVA listeners and new listeners that might be monkey owners. And I'm sorry if we're confusing new listeners, but this is monkey talk. Yeah, the monkeys are terrible pets. Monkeys are little evil humans in little monkey bodies, I think. And they will do things just to annoy you. They're too smart to be pets, and I don't think they like it.
Okay. So did you guys keep it for a while? Did you discard it? What do you do if you get tired of the monkey?
I think the monkey passed away.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
What was the largest number of animals that you had in the house, do you think, at any given time?
Oh, over 100.
Holy
but that's
shit.
counting birds,
Birds don't count.
Birds don't count. Don't need to feed them.
I mean, if you're going to compare, a monkey just being one animal and like a bird being one animal, it's like they're different.
But monkeys are I think people always think monkeys are a good idea. And so the thing that made Troy laugh is that I told him about how the monkey masturbated. I think it was as an act of aggression, because he would look at you in the eyes while he was doing it. And sometimes if you tried to move the monkey, he would pee on the most inappropriate thing, like your sandwich, just to make sure. And it was just like a sign of deep, deep intelligence, which makes you hate it more. When a stupid dog does something, you're like, you're just an idiot. Monkeys don't do that.
Monkeys do have a reputation.
I mean, every year somebody gets thrown off a balcony by a monkey in India. I don't know. Follow the news, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, groups of monkeys just push people, I think, to some vice mayor or something of a town, where they'll throw rocks at people. I was once in Malaysia. I was once attacked by a group of monkeys. I don't know what they wanted. I expected one to pull out a little switchblade. It was like a situation. So yeah, no, I don't love monkeys. They deserve to be free in the wild.
Did you ever have a monkey, Brian?
I never had a monkey. I did go through a phase, which I think most boys have, but they grow out of, which is a fascination with monkeys and wanting to have a monkey. I did.
Did you have a ferret?
I thought you were going to say snake. You look like a person that would have a reptile aquarium, maybe.
Me? I'm not. You got the wrong guy. No, gerbils at the most, some hamsters. But again, that's a phase. Boys go through, at least they used to. I don't know if they do now. Maybe they just play video games now. But they usually go through like a rodent phase. I'm
considering an aquarium.
That's good.
All right, you want to hit it, Brian, with the quick hits?
Yes. Yeah. Let's start. One of the things that struck me, I know this is media talk, but we'll get into the AI talk because I think it's related. Google came out with, I guess, statistics. I mean, it's their own. Basically, they're saying that actually AI overviews are sending just as much traffic to publishers. And this was created with publishers like, give me a break, because they've seen a decline in search traffic. And this has been happening for years. There's a lot of obfuscation going on with what's happening with search traffic patterns. I mean, Google has been turning off the tap for some time now. And this really came to relief, I think, when the former Dotdash Meredith reported its results as PeopleLink. And just the sheer amount in just 2 years, Google has gone from something like 53% of their traffic to like 28%. And, their traffic has been, mostly flat, a little bit up over that time. But it just shows, I mean, now they are something of like a bellwether, I think, for traffic patterns on the internet. And, Google coming out and saying, no, we're sending traffic out just as much. It's not very believable. To me, it's pretty clear the direction this is going. I'm not sure why Google is coming out with with this stuff. I mean, I don't doubt that they're sending traffic out there, but it's pretty clear the direction of travel. And so might as well get on with it and just say that you're going to be getting less traffic and you should basically plan for that. Am I missing something here, Troy?
Well, can I just mention something? This was kind of, so Neil Fogel, who's CEO of People Inc., previously Dotdash Meredith, and likely future CEO of Peloton. We don't know that. I'm joking. So when I raised that with him last time we interviewed him, there wasn't much concern about it.
Alex, we would be sued independently on this podcast, and I hope he takes legal action.
Yeah. No, I don't think. I mean, I actually think we all know that Dotdash Meredith has actually been a success story. But when I spoke to him or asked him a question about that and the worries around that, he didn't seem all that worried. But the numbers keep showing these kind of massive drops, and it looks like what we're hearing, nobody's really incentivized.
Wait. What numbers?
Well, Pew claims that
the revenue is up. To be clear.
Oh, fair enough. I'm specifically talking about kind of the SEO traffic coming in, right, into these properties, right? And sorry, Pew's numbers, Brian?
Yeah, Pew's numbers had said that basically the search results without AI overviews, the 15% of people click a link, and with them 8%.
Yeah, so it's like a drop in half. Either way, I mean, I actually think People Inc. is, like we said, a success story as well. They're finding revenue streams coming from elsewhere. And I'm not specifically saying that they're in trouble, but it seems like there has been a lot of kind of burying your head in the sand by the media, and then supported by kind of Google dropping these kind of like numbers like, no, this is actually not that bad, and don't worry, as many people are going to go there. Meanwhile, we all see it. Like, I mean, you can just look at your browser history. I visit a lot less sites than I used to. Like, it's just, I think, clear to anyone. And so that's going to there's a fundamental shift happening in the market, and it's not getting worse. As these models get better, they'll give you more answers, and you'll have less need to get to a site, and they'll surface more media just directly to you. I mean, I just did a search just using ChatGPT, and it gave me a shopping list, like with links and photos and things like that. I don't use the internet anymore the way it's intended to. So
I think you got there on the internet.
No, I mean, I think the open web, this kind of like, I mean, I don't even get why Google at this stage is either saying that they're still sending links to people, because the link is essentially like, at this stage is turning into a relic really quick. That's all I'm saying. And if it's not a 3-alarm fire in all of these media companies that are making money from people coming in from Google, it should be. But you think, I mean, you're both looking at me like I'm saying something stupid. I don't know.
No, I don't think you're saying something stupid. I mean, I think a lot of I'm impressed that they've been able to, keep growing, honestly. I mean, making that kind of switch is major, because a lot of the traffic that Google sends is the most valuable traffic. It's, to their property site. And making up for that with Apple News dependency is not the same.
I mean, I think they're both parties, both the publishers and Google, they're kind of complicit with each other, and they're both incentivized to say it's not that bad, right? Nobody wants to say it's that bad. Right? The media companies don't want to say it's that bad because they don't want to hurt their stock. Google doesn't want to say it's that bad because they don't want to...
I think there's the kind of detailed line by line examination of a business and its growth prospects. And when you look at 52 to 28% coming off Google, and you look at, so there's a decline there. Then you look at growth from, say, Apple News or other syndication sources, and you look at the fact that a company like People Inc., 40% of their revenues print, and
which is bananas.
You look at there's a new line item in model revenue, OpenAI deals, stuff that they're doing to sell their content to the aggregators. And then you look at the fact that they've got Decipher, which shows their ambition on the kind of ad network side. These are diversified businesses that can, kind of bob and weave with changes in the market. So I think that, with that said, you get a flat to a little bit up quarter. And the bigger picture, though, is Wall Street says the company's worth very little. And People Inc. sits inside of IAC. Most of IAC's value comes from their stock holdings in MGM. And it would suggest that basically, there's two other companies in there. One's like a search arb company, the other's care.com, and then People Inc. It would say that the market's probably valuing it at less than $500 million. There's always a bit of a knock on a conglomerate in terms of how you value the parts. But you look there, or you look at Ziff, the market hates these businesses. And the bigger picture is there is broad, per your point, Alex, there is a broad behavioral change that is, undeniable. And when we get into the segment that I'll lead on the pod today, it's like what I'm imagining, this is, I guess, a preview, or what I'm enjoying as a media consumer is a completely different way of processing information.
Well, let's get into it. Let's just go. Well, this is jazz, Troy.
You want to get into it?
Yeah, I want to get into it.
Well,
we'll deviate.
Let me take my Zin out then.
Oh, wow. It's serious.
I've always thought that the most powerful type of media in terms of your ability to develop a passionate audience base is something that's by its essence is active. When people largely participate as constituents in a community, or people that interact with your content. We know we remember things better when we interact with them. And I think that the best kind of new media people, understand that. People like Emily Sundberg over at Feed Me, like she plays Substack like a fiddle, right? She uses all of their community interaction tools. And I think that the audience feels that. I think it makes them loyal, and I think, it increases engagement. Even something as simple as games, or, obviously comments, games, liking, all the things. Engagement matters. And media at its best is participatory. So it was with that I went on this little journey this week, and a friend of mine said to me, you got to try this podcast tool. And I'm like, I need another podcast kind of player. Like I need a hole in the head. But I tried it, and it's called Snipd. It sounds like a sort of Moyle aggregator service, but it's not. It's SNIP. Is it Snipd or Snipd? Snipd, right?
Snip. Sniply is the Moyle aggregator.
Anyhow, it's really, really powerful, if really, complicated. Now, switching from a platform podcast tool that I use, like Apple's native podcast app. I don't use Spotify. A lot of people do, and a lot of people use YouTube. But, you have your lists in there of your podcasts, and you get notifications when there's new episodes and so on. But this is basically, the construct is what I want in all my media, and that is the deep integration of AI with my media. And so I can go through a podcast and it'll break it down into segments. It'll pull out all the insights. If there's video for the podcast, it'll break it up into little pieces. And I can take a podcast and flip through really quickly, something that's an hour and a half, scan the kind of bulleted points from each section, grab the stuff that I'm interested in, either listen to it or just read it quickly. I can see the little snippets that other people are grabbing from other pods. That's a discovery mechanism for me. I can ask questions. The full transcripts are there. I can't tell you how many times I want to take a podcast, find the transcript, and feed it into ChatGPT. You ever had that experience?
All the time. I had it this week with some of the
really
recent
useful because they're a linear construct. Obviously, they ask a lot of your time. It's the same thing with YouTube transcripts. I want to just get the best out of them. Therefore, I want the transcript, put it in AI and process it and get back to business. And if I'm interested, I'll go deeper in it, right? And to find transcripts is a hunt and peck process, and many times they're not there. Anyway, inside of this app, it's all there. So Snipd is really interesting. And as I was in Snipd, I was somehow landed upon this podcast. I think it's from it's called AI and I. And it featured Dorkash. Now, you guys may or may not know of Dorkash. He's sort of
I'm
a
deep
kind
on
of
Dorkash.
Dorkash is like a mini Tyler Cohen.
He was created in the lab.
His goal is to kind of maximize his knowledge while he's on planet Earth, I think.
He's like 24.
Yeah. What does he say?
He knows everything about everything.
He says, like, I want to know everything, right? Like,
yeah.
He
does the work. You love his prep.
Well,
right?
If you don't know this, there's a common refrain for me on this podcast, like, do the work, guys. We got to do the work because people aren't here to kind of develop basic two-dimensional parasocial relationships with a couple of idiots. Like we need to have some substance. So doing the work is important. I think the best podcasts where you do the work and the people are, and it's a dysfunctional sitcom like ours. So anyway, I started reading about Dorkash's process. And I remember going for dinner that night with my son. And my son pulls out a pack at dinner, like some autistic kid, of like, he's 25. So it's like of index cards. And I'm like, oh, what are we going to talk? What are we doing? We're going through index cards. And he had like C# suspended. Like he had every chord and every scale written out on every card. And what his guitar mentor had done is instructed him to stop playing 15 instruments, but master the guitar. So he set out to master the guitar. And one of the ways that he's doing it is with index cards. So it turns out that Dorkash has got like a whole process for absorbing information that's deep, like that really resonated with me, right? Like he likes Claude. He keeps the Claude tab open. He loads books into the AI. He asks questions of the books. When he has guests on his podcast, he does deep, deep, deep research supported by AI until he can find a question that the AI can't answer. And he thinks then he's discovered something that he wants to have a conversation about, stuff that is sort of, yet unexplored. And while reading this, I'm coming to the end of my monologue here, there's sort of endless prognostications on, how AI is going to decimate the sort of white collar, middle management class. And I think that refrain is getting stronger. Right. And so there's this urgency to sort of get smart, to figure out how we can absorb information inside of this tsunami better. And it struck me that this is really timely. Like, how do we consume media? How are we active participants? How do we get smarter? And then today I open up the FT and there's an article that says in Germany that when they give young children tools on how to learn, their performance, they I don't know what it's called, Alex, but they bifurcate the paths of young people. Like either you're going to be a mechanic or a doctor in Germany. They put you on a different path. And the kids that they gave sort of learning cognitive tools to did 16% better in terms of getting into the elite programs. And so it's I think a lesson to us. In some ways, it's kind of like, how do we keep up with mechanized knowledge?
Yeah.
But to me, it was like media is changing. My interface to media is changing. We need to learn better as human beings. All of that together, and it was manifested inside of this little app that I use.
So I have a question for you with this.
Yes.
Do you actually feel smarter with all of this? Because I think that is what I think there's a lot of attention and being focused. I was listening to a Derek Thompson podcast with Cal Newport about this, and it was about the demise of deep learning and literally doing the work. Like it's a pain in the ass reading. Like reading books is a pain in the ass. Like getting a summary of books and putting it in a flashcard system in order to perform is very efficient, and I understand why that's attractive. However, studies have shown that using AI to accomplish writing tasks, like writing is thinking is a new meme out there, because I believe it. We've discussed this in our podcast, and I'm biased in there, is that we're losing the ability to do deep learning. Like literally our brain synapses do not fire as much when we're using these AI tools. And so that what
Or it fires more.
Well, what Cal Newport was saying was, that's what the data is showing. And that like, maybe this is just an inevitable transition as we commodify intelligence, like we've commodified everything else. And so it really just becomes, back to what you're saying about the media ecosystem, it just becomes about the performance of intelligence, not actually having the deep understanding.
I love
Yeah, I think we're conflating a few things. I think that what you can do when you kind of min-max hack your way into absorbing more and more information is that you don't give yourself a ton of time to process it or to question it. With the same way when you
kind of ask AI. Processing information is friction.
Exactly. And I mean, my topic is a little bit about that, but I think that as we're replacing all the friction with just more space to absorb or create more, right? Like it's an input output, right? We're actually like reducing the moments of friction where our brain is actually going to do these cognitive connections or even mistakes that lead you down a path. And so I do think both things can be true. I do think you can kind of like max out your information intake so much that it actually has very little value, or just it becomes like nothing more than a party trick at some point. But like I think that for learning, if you're intentional about it and you learn and you understand how you learn best, because I also have a bias, and I think that the education system is made by people who write the books, and people who write the books love to read the books because their brain absorbs information like that. And now a bunch of kids are being told, hey, this is how you learn. Look at me. I wrote this book. You have to absorb it. But I can sit down with an AI and learn any topic in the way that I like to learn it, which is through examples and analogies and asking questions. And yeah, I do that. And I feel like it's being useful, like if I'm going to admit something, there's a few books I know I'll never read. I'll never read War and Peace. So sometimes when I am in my commute, I'll sit down with the AI and say, hey, what's War and Peace about? Can you give me the cultural reference? What happened when it came out? How culturally relevant is it now? Have there been, what a piece of culture that reference this book, because I keep hearing it. And that can be useful. I think that there's a place where you can kind of become an addict. I think I was there when RSS feed started out. I don't know, Troy, when you met me, I was consuming 600 articles a day. And I
loved you more.
But I still have like I retain a lot of information about pop culture and things like that, because I do read a lot, I skim a lot, I absorb culture pretty well. But at some point, I think the problem is like we're constantly mediated now, and we're never letting our brains rest, whether it's to stop and think what we're going to write next, or it's whether to stop and think about the information we're consuming.
So one of the things that came out in this podcast that I thought was interesting was the fact that the use of a lot of these AI tools is being shown not actually to save even time. It saves effort, because like you actually have to put in effort, like to read and to sit with a book and to do deep learning.
Well, there was this data about the coders who thought they were 30% faster, but they were actually 30% slower, right?
They were just easier. We just want to take the easy way out. So I think what's interesting to me is how these technologies are being made. I'm gonna traffic in generalizations because this is a podcast. Are being made for a minority of people by a minority of people. Like you're saying that like the education system is being designed by people who like words, and so for their own interests and whatnot. But now we sort of have the reverse, right? We've got a lot of people who learn in a particular way and are a distinct minority. Really, I believe that we'll find that out, but we'll see. And that it's overturning the entire system. Cal Newport is a professor, and he's talking about how students are using these technologies, and they're using them constantly all day. And they're using them, of course, as social technologies. Everything becomes a social network. And so we sort of talk about these things as productivity tools, but the way they're actually being used, they're being used for therapy. They're being used, what did she mean? This pasting and everything. And so I think that's an entirely different thing altogether, because it sort of holds out the idea that this will overturn how people have all interpersonal relations and how their brains work. Like, I don't think we know yet.
I think it's a crazy thing that we have now come to take for granted, that every communication tool we have proposes the answer. Like you open your email. Hey, do you want to say this? You open your chat. Hey, do you want to say this? No, I want to respond to this person. Why are you pushing this to me? Which is, and I don't know what happens to our brains on this type of like constant intermediate kind of friction removal that happens that stops us from doing a bunch of stuff that we should just be good at. It's wild,
I think these are really good counterpoints, and that suggests to me that this format that we're taking this week, where someone brings an argument and the other people contribute, is a good one.
Why are we
I
showing
like
the
it,
wires?
and I like this idea that knowledge becomes performative, right? That Dwarkesh is performative, because having a conversation with a nuclear physicist on your podcast requires a certain level of understanding of the topic, but you don't have to make nuclear physics.
Yeah, and it's likely fleeting, right? I mean, he might have a great
right. You're not. You're not working the equations. You're not making the things.
Yeah.
Well, it's
on the other hand,
a lot of this
Brian,
stuff is parlor tricks. They're parlor tricks.
We are in fact living, like, what I struggle with is the amount of information that I want to process a day, and the amount of and I want to also find where I want to go deep and take the time. And I think that using the tools as a way to investigate what I'm interested in is rewarding and memorable and not performative.
Right.
I think this is like literally the crux of a huge discussion of our time, which is, how do we learn? How do we sit beside the machines? And how do we act? What is our interpersonal dynamic? Like, you talk about, like, a guy just pitched me a business, which is basically, been pitched, I would think I told him 100 times, which is like OnlyFans and AI. And this week, in a kind of honest endeavor to understand this a little better, I didn't start doing porn talk, but what I did do is I went over to X and I started having a conversation with the MAGA squirrel or raccoon that Elon created.
Is that one of those AI?
It's an AI character that you can talk to, and it'll start yelling at you and being vulgar. And
I thought you were talking about Cat Turd.
No. It's an animated character that's one of the agents on X. And there's another one which is like a sexy manga character. And the more you talk to her, she'll take her clothes off or something like that. Right. And I felt, when I was using it, like, I tried both of them, I can understand why this becomes a completely addictive experience for people.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, to me, and then we can move on to the other topics, but a lot of it is around who has like the self-control enough, right? It's like the e-assist bikes. Like, if you use e-assist bikes correctly, you're going to actually get a better workout. It's been proven, right?
Well, I would finish.
But a lot of people just don't want to pedal. Like, let's be real.
So the analogy is more, I mean, I think it feels like the beginning of the internet. So for the people who kind of got on the internet early on, and which I was one of them, I was just like fire hose, like conspiracy theories.
Oh, really?
Chat. Well, sure. I mean, mostly like alien stuff and MK12 or MK, what, I don't remember.
Well, I would finish, Alex, with a quote from
Ultra.
your favorite supervillain, Mark Zuckerberg. Do you remember when Mark told us that social media was going to create like global kumbaya?
Yeah. Instead of creative genocide.
But there's a quote in his memo this week about, it's the sort of reset memo for Meta, like the pursuit of superintelligence, that is just completely, I don't know whether it makes my case. It probably doesn't make my case, but it's sort of like, I'll read it. As profound as the abundance produced by AI may one day be, an even more meaningful impact to our lives will likely come from everyone having a personal superintelligence that helps you achieve your goals, create what you want to see in the world, experience any adventure, be a better friend to those you care about, and grow to become the person you aspire to be. I mean, it's nauseating, obviously.
It's nauseating, and I don't trust him, and I don't think he understands how people work. I mean, here's the thing.
Well, to give him a break, like, he hasn't been around regular people, like, literally his entire life. He's like a child prodigy.
I don't give a shit.
They always grow up weird.
He's not a child prodigy. He's not a child prodigy.
He said he's a child actor.
Come on, guys. Let's, like, some of these people got lucky. They played their hands well. they're fine. I don't trust
Well,
them.
you don't think
I
he's a
don't believe
child
what is-
prodigy? I mean,
No.
he was like going around with the "I'm the CEO, bitch" like business card, like when he was like 21 and wearing like the flip flops. He didn't develop like a.
What does
he
that
didn't
make
have
him
a
a child?
Well, because he didn't have a chance. It's like I know a guy who was like in the tennis world, and he said, "Well, you have to realize is all these tennis players are freaks because they never had like normal childhoods and they weren't able to like
Yeah, but like Zuckerberg is a freak. If you want to compare him to tennis players, like saying Nadal was looking into the girls' locker rooms, slipped, and then ended
Was
up
he?
with a racket on his hand and won the tournament. I mean, his first product was a hot or nothing on college, and then he turned it into something else. He's not a stupid person. I'm tired of making these people into some sort of geniuses because then it becomes. Then we start listening to them when they start telling us where society is meant to go. And I don't trust him with that. I think he has been a great business person, obviously a smart man. Look, here's the thing, right? Everybody's trying to build a version of where computers are a story about removing layers of abstractions. Before we had the punch cards, and before that you were building things, and then we brought the computer closer and closer to us, and then we got a mouse, and then we got a touch screen, and now we want to put it over our eyes and in our ears, right? And so if you're talking about like a learning aid, a thing that's omnipotent and intelligent, so much that I can have a conversation with a nuclear physicist and this thing is in my ear giving me the answer, because the thing that's happening in your email will happen in real life. That's where they want to take it, unless we reject it. And this is kind of part of my topic, but unless we reject it, you will have a thing in your ear that everybody has, so we all forget about it. And somebody will say, have you seen the thing? And you will just pause for a second and say, oh, you mean that thing? Or it's like, have you seen that movie? Oh, you mean the 1978 production or the original German production from 1945? You will know everything, but you will know nothing. And I think this is where we're heading. If you check all the minor technological miracles that need to happen, which will be checked off, this is where we're heading. And so the stuff that we're talking about today in 10 years will feel really quaint, but I don't know what that does to culture. I don't know what that does to our brains. And I don't know if there's a rejection of it, which is my hope.
There's totally a rejection of it. It is so uncool. AI is so uncool.
So were Bluetooth headphones before AirPods came out.
Maybe.
I'm saying like a culture does change. Culture does change, you know?
Yeah. We'll see.
And so maybe that's a good segue to my point.
Yeah.
Hit it.
Let's segue.
So what I wanted to talk about is actually what I'm calling the moral disgust of AI. Humans have, for survival reasons, disgust responses, which is why we find certain things, certain smells disgusting. Is because they feel dangerous to us. As we develop as a species and develop culture, we develop this idea of moral disgust, which are like culturally based, like, oh, this person is weird or is acting strange. I was reading this person that works at I16Z, which has this great Substack called Push to Talk, which is about video games. And he was talking about this idea of AI squinting that we all do. Like whenever we're consuming media and art now, once in a while, we'll just squint and say, is this AI? Is this AI? Is that M dash in there? Is that AI? And
LinkedIn has got a lot
you're
of AI
constantly
on
doing
these
it.
days.
You're constantly doing it. And I was thinking about it. I thought that's a very good point. And it's also exhausting. It's an additive, I'm a designer, UI designer, so I think about cognitive load a lot. And this is an added cognitive load. And I was thinking about it's like, why do we even do this if it isn't some sort of fear response? Which I think maybe at a lizard brain level, there's like a sort of a fear response where we're looking at it, and I think there's a moral disgust that even people who are pretty optimistic about AI have this reaction. Like you can do a test where you show somebody a piece of art and then you tell them it's AI and you ask them if it changes their mind, and they say, well, I like it less now, right? And so maybe we feel cheated by it. Maybe we feel guilty because it's like there's a sense that it's like we're using it to replace artists by using the artist's works, which just feels icky. Like no matter what, copyright law ends up saying, but there's like a level of moral disgust that creeps in. And right now, I think that's what's taking over. It used to be that like last summer, you still had arguments with people where they say, well, AI is not good enough. But I think the summer of 2025 has been kind of a milestone period for tools, right? VO3 has shown that you could create videos that look near production ready or can be production ready. Like even the people who used to say, well, it'll never be as good as are saying, oh shit, it might be as good. 11 Labs just launched their music thing. And honestly, like if I heard one of these songs on the radio, I might even like one of them. I might, might just say like, yeah, that's not bad. But we've also like seen the response to people hearing about AI artists on Spotify, etc. There's like the tools and the way the products are, if are being sold to us is that there's this creative revolution happening, right? And here are all the things that you have, and the tools are capable of doing that. Yet there's, I think, a cultural wall that is built that is not allowing this to happen, right? Because we would be in a generative AI, creative, renaissance phase right now. And I think it's really, really telling that there's so much pushback.
But how widespread do you think that is? Because I mean, I get it. I would have that kind of the feeling, but I think most people kind of, to use the Bonhoeffer thing, they're like, oh, first they came for the writers, then they came for the designers. But isn't that like particular groups of people versus like the general population? Are they? That's what I end up wondering about. I think
in cultural production, Alex, there's always going to be reaction to things that are perceived as inauthentic or anti-human.
For sure. But I think I think I have three scenarios that I think can work out. Troy, you like making lists, but I feel like, I don't know. I think that right now it's pretty widespread. I think that it's a complicated kind of issue. I think people like AI. A lot of times the AI that they like is talking to chatbots. I think they like sending people a funny little, Studio Ghibli kind of version of themselves. But I don't think that they want to consume it as art or culture yet. I think that a lot of people find this icky. Now, it doesn't mean anything because culture changes. And I think there's three scenarios, right? The first one is the AI optimist scenario. It's the one that Google and the 11 Labs and these AI tools. So the audiences and creators are going to embrace it. Right now,
of course.
We will find new and novel ways to explore cultures. Like computers,
they've been peddling this shit forever. It's the same stuff. Sure. They just changed the words.
And maybe it's like computers and synthesizers, right? Like when synthesizers came out, and even use electric guitars or whatever, like people used to look down on them. And then Giorgio Moroder drops like I Feel Love, and everybody loves synthesizer, and it changes music forever. So maybe that's what happens. Maybe we haven't seen what human and AI generative art is. Maybe a 16-year-old in her bedroom makes the next Star Wars. We don't see it. Okay, so that's the AI optimist. The artist optimist is like there'll be a rejection, right? So this kind of AI art will proliferate in ads. It will proliferate at your dentist's bathroom. You'll have it everywhere, but it'll be just stuff that you ignore. But the actual kind of premium real art will be sold at a premium. Culture will reject the fake. Like people will go to more concerts, maybe. And we're seeing this a little bit right now, like McGee, right? This artist that we love, his sound sounds like it's recorded in a bathroom. It doesn't sound like AI. It's really trying hard to make it look how unpolished I am, right? Like I'm anti-aesthetic. And then the third scenario is the realist scenario, which is me, which is at some point the dam will break culturally. So it'll be a trickle of like, okay, we're using AI for this, but over time, a lot of us will stop caring and we will just consume media. Spotify will push more and more AI media, which you can do for free and doesn't have to pay anyone for. And much of our culture will be generated from things that came before. And that like has a bunch of ramifications, that we need to talk about in a different topic. But there's just too much energy behind using AI. Hollywood cannot afford to do $200 million movies anymore.
It's like cultural Groundhog Day.
I think the past is eating the future constantly. Like already with algorithms and stuff like that, when we were growing up, we weren't exposed to all this stuff from the past, and now we're constantly shown clips and stuff, and blah blah blah, and AI will just make that worse because it's just like constantly regenerative. But I still think that right now there's a moral disgust.
But don't you find it's very strange that we live in a time of like extreme agency, yet we all sort of throw our hands up and be like, oh well, this is just how things are going to go. Doesn't that discount the fact that, people actually have agency with this? Or is it just that time and again, it's proven that through a lot of different social mechanics that technology has been able to get hooks into people and to get them to act in ways that honestly are against their interests. Like if you do believe these studies that this is cognitive, it's hurting you cognitively. Like I know I personally, I feel that like I'm dumber than I used to be. And I don't feel smarter. I don't think I'm unique in that. Like I feel dumber. Like I felt smarter and more informed when I read books versus when I read the internet. Like I don't think that the internet has made me any smarter. I think it's actually been the reverse. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and it's accelerated with the use of AI. For instance, I've kind of trying to stop using ChatGPT all that much. I think it's just a crutch. And personally, it's funny with you say about VO3. I think that like ChatGPT in particular has gotten even worse at writing. I don't know how, but it's gotten worse. And maybe
I think that there's another, and I don't remember the psychological term for it.
It's a recognition of how it writes that makes
yes,
it feel
yes.
worse.
It's not this, it's that. It's high signal.
People who work in video games have been talking about this for a while. When you had your original Xbox and you played a video game, you looked at that video game and you were like, that looks photorealistic, right? But as you're exposed to better and better graphics, you can now see the patterns where this looks it looks terrible now, right? It looks really bad. And I think we're just, there is a progress that's happening in us where we're becoming better and better at pattern recognition. But there's a time when this technology will surpass that. And I think at that stage, it's problematic. I mean, already today, spend an hour on TikTok, you're dumber. I'm sorry, you didn't spend your time well. You didn't make memories. Your time goes by so quickly. It'll make you feel like your life has gone by quicker and you've had less experiences in it than sitting down and being bored. And it's going to get worse.
So what drugs can I take? Is it peptides? I see a lot of talk about peptides. What are they doing?
Is that your topic? Because we've got 7 minutes.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about the drugs next episode? Because Alex has a lot of anecdotes. What do you got, Brian? What's in your?
So one of the things that I've been like thinking about. Do you remember a guy Eli Pariser?
Yeah.
So Eli he rose in the last generation. He gave actually back when like people paid attention to TED Talks. He gave a TED Talk and then he turned it into a book, I believe, like about filter bubbles. And at the time, we were all concerned about filter bubbles, that we would be stuck in a filter bubble, and that assumed that we were going to basically use the personalization of the social technologies, the information technologies at the time would basically push people into creating their own self-reinforcing bubbles, right? And this was the big threat. And I think in some ways, like that was correct. Eli went on to found Upworthy, which is one of the classic clickbait sites of the time, although they denied being clickbait, but they were. And now I almost think that we've created parallel worlds. And I've been digging into the alternative media world because I think that understanding the dynamics of particularly of like the sort of right-wing podcast, YouTuber world, X shit posters, and all the rest of this they're at the forefront, I think, of like sort of where this information system is going. And what's interesting to me is like they're developing an entire parallel system. They have their own technologies. They have Truth Social, Rumble. Rumble has its own like Substack. I had no idea. It's called Citizens. It's like also a community platform. And they have their own set of advertisers. Like I listened to Tucker Carlson interview Candace Owens. Do you know Candace Owens? Like,
yes.
She's like, yes. she's, and it was all about how Brigitte Macron is a man. Like, and like, this would have shocked me. Like, sort of, I was like, this is bizarre. But now it's just kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is one other thing that gets thrown into the substrate. And it's impossible to tell what is real. And at some point, it doesn't really even matter what is real because the whole point of it.
Well, it matters when someone gets arrested, but. Yeah.
It matters when someone gets arrested. Candace Owens is being sued by the Macrons over this.
But you can always, I mean, all of these people they're hacking the algorithms, they're hacking language to make sure it's all allegedly,
Yeah, it's all engagement farming. And what I've like noticed is that we sort of decried, and a lot of people decried clickbait as, and like clickbait is like, when you look back, it's like such like
Quaint.
it's so quaint, like the
Quaint.
the engagement farming going on now. And that's why I think Trump is like a singular figure in this, in that he has one foot in the old world. He's obsessed with tabloids. He's obsessed with the New York Times. He calls reporters. He's working the refs. But like he also is a natural in the new world. In this, he's a natural information entrepreneur, and he's able to get attention. He knows this in his blood from WWE. And if you look at like what you have to create drama, everything is a performance. Do you know this guy, Nick Fuentes? He's like
unfortunately, yes.
Kind of like white nationalist kid. I don't
kind of.
I don't know how to describe him. I guess he is. He is an incredibly talented performer. And I think he's incredibly dangerous because of that, because he's such a good performer. And that's what like pops these days. He's in a dispute with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and they create all these WWE like feuds. And you see it with like, the comedians who are sort of geopolitical strategists, in that it's all this ongoing sort of soap opera that sucks people into this parallel world. And when you enter it, you honestly don't know what is real. Like, I mean, I've been like, immersed in this, and I expect Barack Obama to be arrested for treason any day now. Like it's it's assumed that this is going to happen. Like in this world.
I wonder if folks in the audience could write in and figure out who we should have a feud with.
It's going to be Dylan Byers. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we also have one with. We also have one with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, but they don't seem to pay attention to us. So, and it's mostly Troy as well. So
So the other thing is they have a parallel set of advertisers, and it's like it's the successor to like DRTV, like late night ads. But it's like CBD for pets. Tucker has his own Zyn brand. He was doing ads for Pistols. There's a lot of prepper ads that go on here, unsurprisingly. And a lot of negotiate with the IRS on your behalf ads. And so they don't have to have they don't have to have big brands support them. They've created an entire parallel universe. And I don't see this coming back together. I think this is just the way things are going to go in the information space.
I wonder sometimes though, and I know we both have a hard stop, Brian, but one thing I wonder about is that it's hard to really understand the reach and influence of people nowadays, because sometimes like just the exposure that you have from them and how the algorithm decides to show things to you or me just because it enrages me versus like, versus like maybe kind of their true audience isn't that big or isn't that valuable, and then we're kind of the secondary audience that we just look at it as a kind of a circus.
And maybe we should have known that the consequence of all this would be the suspension of the laws of information gravity, right? It's sort of like, okay, when anyone can create with no consequences and there's no kind of process for objective truth telling, you get this kind of world of cosplay and virtualization of, which means that it's all performance.
Which is why, like, I'm very interested in how the tech world is creating their own parallel media ecosystem, because they tried to co-opt.
And it's a great, you've talked about it for a long time, Brian, and the truth is, guess what? It's true. And if you look at the reach of the A16 podcasts, like, they're real. It's real.
Yeah, we're gonna have to pick up the tech thing, because like I've spent a lot of time unpacking I take these people literally and seriously. I mean, I don't think I should take them literally because they're being intellectually dishonest a lot of times. But what Mark Andreessen says about media, some of the things I'm like, okay, some of these facts I actually agree with. Now, the dots that you connect, I find intellectually disingenuous, and you simplify it into a very neat narrative of good guys tech, bad guys journalists. And in some ways, I originally thought this was a bit of performance art to sort of shine to hold up a mirror to how it's
just a power play.
Yeah, no, it's just about control and power. Then I realized that this is not.
All right.
Should we do a quick good product or no?
Well, let's just pretend that Snipd product is a flawed but good product and something that we can substitute this week. But I would just reflect on to anyone that's gotten this far, we made a subtle format change, a little bit.
Oh, don't show the wires. That nobody cares about that.
Okay. That's it for this episode of People versus Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People versus Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Good to see you, Brent.
Good to see you. Bye.